Okay, good morning to everyone who is morning right now, and welcome to AXELOS webinar on taking IT4IT on the ITSM journey. My name is Jouravlev, and I'm happy to welcome my friend and colleague and co-presenter today, Anton Lykov, to present with me on this webinar. And welcome everyone. The picture that is now on the cover slide is actually the cover of a recently published paper that we co-authored that has the same name, Taking IT4IT on the ITSM journey. And we are happy to talk more about the topic that we tried to cover in the paper. The paper is available for download in the resource section of the webinar interface, and it will be available together with the recording of the webinar afterwards. So if you haven't read it yet, then you will have a chance to download it from here, using the same link or specifically sent follow-up link, and that's fair for the presentation of the webinar as well. And just as normally we do it at all our webinars in the beginning, in case you don't know us, I work at AXELOS as IT Portfolio Development Manager, and in one line, I am responsible for the ongoing ITIL update, working with a lot of recognized, distinguished subject matter experts from all over the world on making ITIL better, refreshing the content, refreshing the structure, and actually updating ITIL. But this webinar is on a different topic, although, of course, we are taking on board everything that has been developed in the industry the last 10 years since the last major ITIL update. So IT4IT and the concepts and models developed and offered by this standard are very interesting for us, and we are working together with the open group discussing how we can combine the knowledge from ITIL and from IT4IT for the benefits of the audience, of the practitioners all over the world. I would expect that you see actually the slide with our names now. So I have told a couple of words about myself, and now I'm inviting Anton to introduce himself, so we then could proceed to the actual content. Anton?
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you are. My name is Anton Lykov. I work as a solution architect for the EMEA region at the Micro Focus. I'm former Hewlett-Packard software employee, now joined the Micro Focus team. I'm working on ITSM projects in Europe, and I'm located in Moscow, Russia. Happy to join and to co-present at this webinar. Yeah.
Thank you, Anton. So let's start. Couple of technical moments before I actually proceed to the content. It should be visible in the slide section, the actual slide. There is a resource section where IT4IT paper is available for download. There is also a chat when you can ask your questions. If the questions are technical about sound, about visuals, about connection, then my colleague Marianne here will try to help you immediately. And if they are subject matter focused, then we will have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So once we are done with the slides, we will run through the questions accumulated, and if they haven't been addressed by then during the presentation, then we'll do our best to answer them. So do ask your questions in the Q&A. We will not address them immediately, but at the end of this webinar, there will be a special section to read through them and to answer. So In a couple of seconds, the slides will be updated on your screens. And what I wanted to start with is that the obvious fact, the obvious knowledge that IT management is evolving, and it has been evolving for quite a long time already, but in the recent years, it is evolving really fast. And this evolution, it actually involves all areas of IT management. You might remember this mantra or this like combination of letters of PPT for standing for people, process, technology, also known as people, process, partners, or the 4Ps version of this offered by the current title version, current title guidance, where 4Ps stand for people, process, partners, and products, where products actually mean technology used for service delivery. So maybe correcting the names a bit, we can think that say that people are actually organizational structures and organizational models, and people and their knowledge and their competence and their relationships. And products in terms of technology, actually information and technology. Partners, suppliers, relationships with them, and agreements between us and them and between them. And finally, processes or processes, procedures, value streams, all the ways to organize our work. And every of these four areas of the 4Ps, or the 4 areas of attention of IT managers is evolving. Organization and people evolution includes moving from hierarchies, from this command and control approach, from functions, from silos to self-regulated teams, to product-focused teams, to constantly growing competences, from narrow specialization and I-shaped competence to T-shaped competence, etc. Information and technology is evolving, and as just some illustrations for this evolution, we have this movement from monolithic in-house solutions to clouds and to everything as a service, and from to outsourcing of most of the functions, including software development, so using out-of-the-box blocks, and then back to in-house development, because companies are recognizing that some digital solutions can be their unique sales point and their distinguishing factor. So in-house development is raising back, but it's now based on outsourced cloud platforms and outsourced infrastructure and different architectures such as microservices, etc. So information and technology are evolving and moving back to the front of business development, front line of business development under the fashionable name of digital transformation. Now the approach to management is changing. We are incorporating all these lean and agile principles, borrowing them from manufacturing to IT management, and from project management to generic management to ongoing management of organization. So agile service management is developing, and such movements as DevOps are raising. So we are moving from rigid processes to flexible complexity-aware heuristics, where awareness of complexity and dealing with different types of complexity, different complexity scenarios, describes, for example, such sources as Canevin, is another interesting trend that we are observing. And in partners and suppliers, multi-sourcing and service integration and management, and other trends of wider and wiser use of networks of suppliers and peers resources is another important trend. So things are changing. Things are changing dramatically and very fast in all these 4 Ps that we know from the past. So the Ps are the same, the changes are really fast, and we have to address them if we want our products and services to be really valuable for our customers, as depicted on the right side of the slide. And during this evolution, in this evolution, we need to understand the breadth and answer relevantly to variable various external input, which are also changing and which are less predictable and less safe than we used to work with, let's say, 10 or 15 years ago. So things are changing in all these areas, and all this introduces a lot of challenges to modern organizations and modern IT organizations. And you know that a couple of years ago, AXELOS published the newest book of IT library, which is called the Practitioner Guidance, which, among other valuable things, introduced the so-called guiding principles, the 9 guiding principles for, well, basically for continual improvement of anything. And since everything we do is continual improvement, so it's just good basic principles for management. Actually, we use these principles for nearly everything we do, including, for example, the ITIL update itself. And the principles are depicted on the left. You know them. I will not just read them from the slide, but I want to emphasize 4 of them. So all these challenges that I commented on the previous slide, they do introduce the greater need for transparency for outside stakeholders, for external stakeholders, for our customers, for regulators, for shareholders, investors, etc. They also introduce a greater need for our own transparency, for better understanding of the systems we work with, a better understanding of what we actually manage and how things are connected and related to each other. And it is very close to the also quite important and really high need for the holistic approach to management. We need to understand the system end to end. It's not enough just to focus on certain domains and certain products or certain functions on certain silos. To be successful in the current situation, we do need a holistic approach. We need to understand how things work together and how system operates. So we need to end-to-end understanding of the value creation mechanism, of the value creation system and its connections to things outside, so the peers. And to make it successful, understanding is not enough. We need to collaborate with the other parties involved in creation of value that we are focused on, in co-creation of value with our partners, with our customers, with our suppliers, and it also involves collaboration between internal groups, between teams, between functions, to make sure that altogether we actually are focused on value and understanding of this value, working toward this value, actually checking everything we do with its influence on the final value, not on the immediate output, is something we have to adopt as a principle. And all these are very challenges. We want to do this. We want to act like this. You know, everyone wants to be healthy and wealthy rather than the opposite. But how can we do this? What can help us? What are aims? What tools can we use to ensure that we have the holistic approach, that we see things from the helicopter view, but still details enough? How can we manage and how can we support the collaboration between the parties if they work with their own technology assets, for example? And how can we ensure that things are transparent for us and for those bodies and for those parties that we want them to be transparent for? And all these challenges, not formulated in the form of guiding principles of ITIL, because this set was published actually only in 2 years ago in 2016, but even before that, in 2014, the Open Group presented the first version of the architecture model, information architecture model, information architecture standard for IT organizations delivering this value using those technologies. And this actually one of the aspects, this is actually one of the aspects of architecture that is needed to be understood to successfully manage our value delivery, because companies addressing this challenge, they understand, they realize the internal and external need for transparent and useful architecture view on their processes, on their products and services they manage, on information and technology they use and provide, and on their partnerships. And IT4IT is maybe not answering all these questions, but it's a great step forward to help with understanding all these architectures and with actually putting or moving all these principles and challenges into the real life. And let's have a closer look. Well, in the format of this webinar, the closer look will actually involve only 5 slides, but let's have a closer look on what IT4IT actually consists of, what it offers to IT professionals, and then we'll see how it helps people in ITSM areas of work. And then welcoming Anton, inviting Anton to tell us more about the IT4IT standard itself. Welcome.
Yeah. So IT4IT is, as Roman says, it's a reference architecture, and it's a standard for IT management. And the main principle IT4IT embraces is, as ITIL does, its focus on value. Talking about value, IT4IT specifically talks about IT value chain as one of the main things which IT organization shall understand and build. Yeah. The value chain in IT4IT approach consists of 4 value streams, which you can see here on top of the slides, which are strategy to portfolio, requirement to deploy, request to fulfill, and detect to correct, which correspond actually to what we used to speak about for a while, namely plan, build, deliver, and run. You can say it's phases of a life cycle, and later we will definitely see that the life cycle approach or the is something IT4IT fully embraces. Also, other than value streams, which are, according to IT4IT, produces value within IT organization, there are other supporting activities which are not directly producing value or participate in producing value as part of IT organization, but of course they contribute significantly, and well, calling them supporting doesn't mean that IT organization would be able to exist without them. You can see the list in the bottom part of this slide. Well, it's all about finance and assets, sourcing, reporting, resource and project management, governance, risk, compliance, and stuff like that. And according to IT4IT, using this value chain approach is very helpful, and basically this is not something which has been invented by the open group when creating IT4IT. The value chain approach, the value chain term, is quite common in the industry and has been introduced by Michael Porter in his books, in his well-known books. And actually using this value chain approach and value streams approach is something which should help IT and the business understand each other better, because this value chain approach is something which business understands quite well, and which business people understand quite well. So the whole idea is, again, to bring business and IT closer and let them speak the same, or more or less the same language. You will be able to see the next slide, I think, in a couple of seconds. And speaking about the lifecycle approach, well, combining this value chain approach and the lifecycle of a service, it's really something quite close, because you can see that these 4 value streams, which IT4IT talks about, they each one of them, well, the first three of them, they produce some form of a service in its life cycle. As a result of strategy to portfolio value stream, as IT4IT says, IT organization produces the conceptual service model, well, conceptual service. The IT organization understands what would the service be and look like, and so it's not specific yet. It's not something which is released, but this is the positioning. This is the part of service portfolio actually, and this is the concept which then goes to requirement to deploy, and here it is being created, built, and released, and ready for deployment, as the name of the value stream says. As a result of this value stream, we have a logical service model, yeah, kind of blueprint of a service, but already quite specific because we have the release and the parts of the release, and then as part of request to fulfill, this release is being deployed and all the users are being granted with the rights to use the service. Yeah, all the subscriptions are being created, and then we have the realized service model. We have a real part of our CMDB, which then goes to detect to correct, where we just operate. So again, you can see it's very, very much known to most of us as quite generic life cycle of a service. And as you can see, we drive IT value from left to right, from being more and more specific with our service and more providing more value by having more concrete service. And going backward, of course, there's this feedback loop that we have to measure and create insight to be used in other services. In a few moments, you will see the next slide, which is about the actual reference architecture level 1, which has been created within IT4IT. And this is a very complex picture, you might imagine, but in fact, it deserves to be analyzed and applied, or you can think of applying this to your IT organization, because actually it shows how these 4 value streams are detailed. So the first vertical pillar is strategies portfolio. The second one is requirement to deploy. The second and the third one are requirement to deploy. Then we have request to fulfill and detect to correct, as you can see. And the blue boxes here are the functional components, which are not exactly processes, as we say in ITIL. These are functional components because this is the reference architecture. This is not a process model or something. This is the architecture model. And the black circles are the data objects, which are either created or used within certain functional component. So, for example, on the top right corner, you can see incident component, which is, we all know what would that be, and within that component, you can see incident data object. We have problem component, and we have 2 data objects, problem and known error, and you can have a brief look over this picture, and you will be able to see it again as part of this recording of this webinar, and you can find it. It's available because IT4IT is an open standard. It's not proprietary. It's something you can download and examine. The links between the black circles are the relationships between these data objects, and how are they linked in the overall data model of the IT organization. There are also purple circles, which represent something which is called service backbone, and this is really a representation of the service lifecycle in terms of data objects and the transformation of the data about the service which we have and which we create as part of creation and delivery of the service. So you can see from left to right, we have something about conceptual service, then logical, releases, and actual service in the very end of the service backbone. So this is something which really connects all these pillars, all these 4 value streams together, and make this picture holistic. Speaking about the application of this model, this is, as the title says, it's a reference architecture. So it's for IT organizations to refer to this data, to this architecture, to the data model, and there is another level of detailization underneath. So IT organizations can use it, and actually, from my point of view, it's very consistent, and yeah, a good step to move forward with the IT organization. So on the next slide, you can briefly see the taxonomy which is used in IT4IT, and it's, again, as I said, we have value streams. Each value stream consists of several functional components, which we have seen on the previous slide. Each functional component have 1 or more data objects, that black circles, and some of these circles are purple, which means they're service backbone data objects, and we have relationships between data objects. So this is really a data fabric of your IT organization. And yeah, you can see this notation here. It's really straightforward. I think most IT people would not need any explanation, any additional description in order to understand how to use it. And the application of this, the application of having these functional components and connections between them is to map them to your IT management systems which you might have, and to understand which systems you miss, which ones do overlap, and which data objects and connections and relationships between them, what integrations you might want to have in order to have all these value streams and functional components realized in your IT management architecture according to IT4IT. So it's really it's a source to think about your IT organization, and something which you can then refer. So I think, Roman, back to you.
Yep, thank you. So to sum up this description, when we try to sum it up in our paper, we came to the following conclusion, well, in the relatively plain words, that actually what we, as practitioners, what we are getting from IT4IT model is a high-level information model defining functional components of an integrated IT management toolset. You can call it in any way you like, so it actually can be a number of tools. It can be one integrated toolset, like any system specifically or not specifically designed to manage your IT service management activities. But all these systems, if you think of the one you use in your practice, they all have these functional components for managing incidents, for managing changes, for managing, for example, service catalog, for managing some shopping basket for users if you are in a commercial or commercial-like service type. So all these functional components, they deal with certain objects or with certain records or documents in, if we use another terminology, that reflect the real-life events and the real-life workflows and the real-life objects, or represent them in some way. And when we design our processes, when we design our practices in the real life, that we think of this, we think of these records, but what is missing from the available guidance on process design, on management system design, is normally this integrated high-level picture of how all these objects are connected to each other, how they operated together, and how all this thing is, well, can be automated. We do have some inputs-outputs connections, for example, in the latest version of COBIT. We do have some recommendations on this in the current version of ITIL, but there is no single source of this information. And while the frameworks or sources I mentioned, they are mostly focused on the process component of the management system, IT4IT really adds this information and records canvas to like this new perspective to our management system design, which is truly important, especially if we work in an integrated environment and we have to make sure that for various parties dealing with, for example, a change record or incident record, if we outsource a certain line of incident management, or if we involve multiple teams from multiple locations, maybe using multiple tools in our incident or any other management activities, they actually work in the same information, in the same data architecture, and understand and each other, and can exchange data effectively without losing any integrity. And this is what is really, truly supported by IT4IT. So it's an integrated model for functional components, key data objects, and integration of them within a tool set, or it can be just a single tool, or it can be a combination of tools. I have to add to this, and the second paragraph here is actually a quote from IT4IT. The information model is focused exclusively on the data objects that are mandatory for ensuring end-to-end traceability of service operation and or financially. And on a practical level, it means that although it covers quite sufficiently the four value chains or value streams, sorry, that Anton explained, it does not cover what is called supporting activities in the first value streams model. So all these finance and assets and sourcing and vendor and intelligence and reporting and resourcing and project and governance, risk and compliance activities that are also important management activities, but not directly associated with management of the service lifecycle, like either directing it or enabling it in some way, they are not covered with information model which is provided in IT4IT. So if you have another look at that model, you will see that, for example, the risk register or project plans or some other records that are relevant for these supporting activities, they are not sufficiently covered there. So it is focused on the main value delivery chain. It is good that it's focused on this, and this is what all these integrated ITSM tool sets are normally concerned with. But you know from your practice, I believe, that sometimes we need to integrate it with some other, like enterprise resource planning tools or risk management tools or some other tools that are not involved in that ITSM solutions, and the ITSM solution should be integrated with. So this is an area which is described in IT4IT, but not at the same level of details, and it's not included in this data and relationship object model. So this is something that is important to know when you will be going to use it in a real practice. Now, we have another interesting picture with two cycles. which look, well, I believe the left one is very familiar to everyone involved in IT service management activities. And the right one is less familiar. It's actually one of the pictures, one of the figures from IT4IT reference architecture document. And as we all know, ITIL provides a business process model for IT or process model for IT service management, which is essentially a set of processes and functions to manage services through their life cycle. And these processes and functions are grouped and organized according to this life cycle. And the core part of the cycle is actually design, transition, and operation. And then we have this strategy and CSI areas, as you all know. And as Anton mentioned, IT4IT suggests this line of the purple dots representing IT service on the different stages of its life cycle, from conceptual service to actual realized service. And these three stages of conceptual, logical, and realized service are depicted on the right picture. And overall, as we said, IT4IT provides a data architecture model for IT service management. And now it's a set of data objects to manage services, again, through their life cycle. And there is no approach when you can choose between these two. You need both. We all need. So if we want to have a consistent process model where processes are integrated and actually interact with each other, it should be supported with some information flow, with changes of the data objects. And this is something that is offered by IT4IT, as you can see on the right side. And again, as you can see, I twisted or just turned the ITIL lifecycle clockwise a bit to make it easier to see that what we know as service design and to some extent service strategy is mostly covering the conceptual service life stage. And what we all know as transition is very close to the logical, moving from logical to actual, or even transition from logical to actual realized service state. And finally, service operation deals with the realized services. So the models are really close, even in visuals, and really are suggesting that they should be used together. And I believe these two pictures illustrate it very well. But there is an important note that I have to make things a bit clearer, and it will help us to understand, to realize who are the core target audience for IT4IT in the ITSM domain, in ITSM management system, IT service management system. There are, architectures and architectures. And if an organization is working as a service provider, then it has its own internal architectures. You can think of these architectures in the context of the 4 Ps we started with. So it's an organizational architecture, it's a technology architecture, it's including information and technology architectures, it's a partnership architecture probably, it's a business process architecture, as I mentioned. So, yes, so we have several layers of architectures. Maybe TOGAF is the best source for reference about these layers and how they all work together, another product of the Open Group. But on a highest level, it is also mentioned in ITIL and its current version. So we have to manage our stuff, to put it in the most simple way. And this stuff has different layers, and we have to understand how these layers are organized internally and how they work. And IT4IT is specifically designed to help us with managing our one layers of our stuff or of our resources, which is actually information. So we manage information when we manage services, in order to manage services, and this is our internal records, internal documents, internal relationships between them, and our internal resources to manage this information with. And this is what IT4IT is designed, as you can guess from the name, which is actually IT for IT. At the same time, being a service provider, if we consider ourselves a service provider, an IT service provider, we take responsibility for managing architectures that are part of the services provided. It can be our resources, it can be our customers' resources if the service is about managing the customer's resources. But there are architectures for products and services that we deliver, and architectures of the underlying resources of those products and services and organizations and partnerships, which are not part of our delivery model. They are part of our deliverables. They are our deliverables. And if we provide an email as an IT service, then obviously architecture of this service is not covered by IT4IT. Well, nobody would expect it to be covered, but still it's an important distinction. IT4IT provides a model for our service provider's architecture internal to the service provider organization, even if it's a set of organizations. So let's understand the organization in the widest possible way as an enterprise understood in TOGAF, but it does not provide any specific tools for managing architecture of the products themselves, of the services themselves. Unless, of course, our service is managing other people's service management system, which is a very specific case. And that means that the primary area of application of IT4IT is service strategy in terms of IT. So it's establishment, management, and improvement of the IT service management system, and not of the individual IT services. Because IT4IT actually is designed to help us to integrate and optimize our IT service management system in terms of tools, processes, and information flows that this system comprises. And in terms of interests of practitioners working in a specific ITSM processes or functions, if you are incident manager or configuration manager or capacity manager, it means that your process or your area of work, your IT organization capability is highly likely, as we now put it here in the UK, to benefit from IT4IT if service strategy management is good enough to ensure that holistic and rational approach to ITSM automation and information management is adopted by the organization. So if you are a change manager and you work in isolation and there is no solid IT service management strategy in the company and there is no realized need for the whole holistic architecture across the organization, it's unlikely that you will hugely benefit from any architectural framework, IT4IT included, just because you will not have enough visibility, enough authority, and enough capabilities, enough ability to apply all this, which is also fair for many other good practice sources like ITIL included. On the contrary, if organization is mature enough to realize the challenges and the need that we started this webinar with, then IT4IT is a good solution, is a practically viable solution. So moving from these high-level statements to more addressed, to more specific, and concluding with them this webinar, I have to say that IT4IT is definitely for you. So if you haven't read it yet, being in one of these positions, then get it, read it. It's available for free. Its HTML version is available online fully and for free. So after registration, just have a look at this. It will help you if you design and manage a service management system. You can think of yourself as a process designer, but if you are really keen to create a holistic system, you will need this layer of architecture as well, and you will not find it in ITIL. And being responsible for ITIL update, I will help. I will add yet to this last sentence in the current version of ITIL. If you design, develop, and improve a service management tool, being a product company that actually is selling this tool, if you are a tool provider, or being a tool architect or administrator intern. So regardless of your position to this tool, if you design, develop, and improve a service management automation, IT4IT is a very helpful source for your better understanding of what actually should be automated, what relationships, what objects do you need, and it's a very good test for what you have so far for sufficiency, for effectiveness, for all this. You need to integrate your management systems and tools with those of your partner suppliers and customers. This is another scenario. You are in a SIAM project. You are in a multi-sourcing project. You are just outsourcing some of the functions of your service management, some of the roles of your service management to third parties using some different tools. And you have this problem of integrating with them, and to better integrate, you have to understand the relationships between the information objects you exchange, and IT4IT helps in that. And I have to add that IT4IT doesn't only provide you with this high-level picture that we showed. There are next levels of details, so it's not only about dots are connected. Some details on how they are connected and what actually is being exchanged and what functional components should provide are also provided in IT4IT. So it's not only for a high-level picture, it has some layers deeper. It also can help you. It can be useful if you are a process owner, manager, or product owner, or service owner. So if you need a holistic understanding of the context you work in. If you just are responsible for one process or a couple of processes, it's very useful to understand how things are related, to understand the context. You might remember the principle of working holistically and being transparent. And it helps you if not only if you are responsible for the whole system, but if you are responsible for a part of the system. You still need to understand the whole, and IT4IT helps in this. So to conclude, IT4IT is a useful tool for anyone on the ITSM journey, for anyone involved in IT service management, more so for people involved in planning and improving IT service management system, less so for practitioners on a very focused areas, on a very narrow areas of specialization. But even the latter should be, and I hope they are, interested in understanding how the system works from the top end to end. And obviously, it's an interesting addition to your collection of knowledge if you are generally interested in how ITSM system works. And this is what we actually wanted to tell you today about IT4IT and its usefulness for IT service management practitioners and managers. This is not what is written in the paper. So paper is more focused on the specific application of IT4IT for specific processes in specific lifecycle stages vital. So if you haven't read it, have a look. It's not too long, and it might be also interesting and maybe more specific than this 48 so far minutes talk. We will now run through the Q&A section, trying to address the questions that you probably typed in there. I will have a look now. But before we do that, the deck and the paper will be available. You can use the same registration link that you used to access the webinar. So you will see the recording, and you will see the deck available to download, and you will see the actual paper available to download. If you have any questions that we will not address now, or any other questions regarding the topic, feel free to mail them to very simple email address, ask@axelos.com. It will be transferred to me, and I will share them with Anton. There will be, if not yet, a thread for discussion of the topic in AXELOS Cycle community. If you don't know what it is, Google it. If you know and you are a member of this, just look for the thread. If it's not there yet, it will be started today. The deck and the paper will be available there as well. And there will be a discussion between people interested in the topic and with me on behalf of AXELOS taking part in that discussion. This is what I wanted to tell. Anton, if you have something to add and I missed everything important, just feel free to add it. And I'm opening Q&A in a while to have a look at the questions that you have asked. so not too much. Do we have any certification available for IT4IT from AXELOS? No. No, IT4IT actually belongs to the open group. I believe there are certifications on IT4IT. They are not AXELOS certifications. It's another product. What we consider is recognizing certifications from the open group IT4IT included as a CPD model in our membership. So we do recognize it in our, or we will recognize it soon in our continuous professional development system, but not a direct certification on other companies' IP, of course. And there is a question which most of you cannot read. Our supporting functions can or should be with business responsibility, such as project management should be working under generic enterprise level project management, and likewise for finance, risk, and assets, etc. Yes, that's fair. They should. But first, IT4IT is universal, just like ITIL is, and it can work for you even if your business is actually delivering services. So there can be no business in your organization apart from your business. Your service delivery is the business that should have its projects and finance and other supporting functions. Secondly, even if if our, let's say, IT, if we consider internal IT function as a part of a bigger business, even if our project management should follow the policies and should be compliant to the overall project practices and policies of the organization, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't integrate the data and information flows that affect our projects with all our other systems. So, for example, changes in our ITSM system can be part of some project that we run. And the fact that we run this project under policies of a higher level doesn't mean that this information shouldn't be integrated. Example scenario to explain an architecture. Yes, let's leave it for that community discussion or email. So we just don't have time right now for this, but yes, happy to provide this, or maybe even some links to samples for the open group resources. And other comments are mostly about technical stuff. So it looks like we addressed all subject matter questions, not too many of them this time. Thank you for them. If you will realize that you wanted to ask something and didn't, so feel free to mail us. Thank you very much for attending this. Anton, thank you very much for joining the presentation and actually making the most valuable part of this. And enjoy your week. Hopefully it will be useful for your work. And again, recording will be available soon. Thank you very much for joining us today, and have a great day.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
While we are now disconnecting, thank you. The webinar is closed.